And I want to welcome everybody to the slightly delayed Upper Snake River Advisory Committee meeting 7/23. It's the 12th of October, 2023, and I think let's get right into it. Let's go to Noah for
See if you sent us one email.
to Sherry for a weather presentation.
How's that? That better?
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful.
Okay, I'm gonna share the screen.
We can hear you.
And get this thing rolling. Okay, we want
Excellent. Yeah. It's great.
Is that looking good?
It looks really good.
Okay. Whoa, like I'm cheating. I'm giving you a head start before I want you to see it. Okay. So thanks for having us this year. We like coming to these. I haven't been. I was a hydrologist here I left in 2009, and I'm back as of a year later. So as the observation program leader, now we're part of the hydro team since we don't have a hydrologist. So I am your person today. So first we're going to look at where we've been, where we're headed, and kind of where we are now. So I'm doing a kind of a sampling between April, July, and September for you. First of all, on our temperature departures, the average was 3 to 6 below normal, especially there in the southeast part of our country, our state. And then, and kind of, well, as you can see, below normal throughout the rest of the state. Then we jump into July, lots of red there. And it was, you'll see that it really wasn't too dry, but our temperatures were a lot normal than normal, above normal. And I didn't get a number, but we were in the 90s for quite a bit. I don't think we hit 100 degrees here, but we got pretty darn close. And then looking into September, still a little bit above normal on our temperatures, and being just like that last month, our September was pretty warm here and beautiful. And now our precipitation for the season, and this for the water year. So going back to water year through April, we had kind of holding around 90%. Well, the 2022-23 season kept us above normal for pretty much the whole year. So such a wet winter, especially down here, we were about 300% of normal in some places. And then as the late snow melt went on, some of our areas down in Bear Lake were about 400% of normal. So, and by the way, we had flood warnings out in eastern and central Idaho for 72 days, which is a record for us. So looking at April, pretty much everywhere across the board, lots of green, some of those yellows as you get further north, and that's signatures a lot more visible there by the end of July. And we still down here in southwestern, or excuse me, I'm from Southwest Montana, so I mess that up all the time. So down here in our part of the state, how's that? We have had a pretty good amount of precipitation, and then September, those last little bits. So the signature's kind of the same throughout, just showing a little bit less here and there. So then moving on to our drought, we went from, as the title said, from much to nearly none. Such a nice change in color there. The colorful map on a drought outlook is not what you want to see. So we were severe drought, pretty much all of Idaho, and then, or excuse me, moderate. And then down here in southern Idaho, we were heading into severe. Then July, thanks to winter, we went pretty much all in the no drought category, which is awesome. And we've been holding there since the spring pretty much. Got a little bit it's moved back into the panhandle. And so we're holding well with that nice water year behind us. Then, did I go the wrong way? I did. Where's the next one? And okay, suddenly it looks horrible, but as you notice, this is just since the water year began on October 1st, and the temperature departure. We've had a beautiful October so far. Last weekend we were in the upper 70s, which is astounding for us. And then the precip we've had quite a fair amount this last 24 hours. I don't know what we've had, but it's been pretty much pouring and scattered showers for the whole night. And so come a couple weeks from now, hopefully those reds will die down and maybe we can keep those blues. Okay, so looking ahead into your short-term forecast, down here in the valleys in Pocatello, we have it warming up through the weekend. I mean, not like last weekend in the upper 70s, but typical beautiful fall day. And then up on Teton Pass, where they got a fair amount of snow last night. So they're going to dry up as well, but they've got a little bit of chance of showers over on that side. And looking at the 7-day precipitation, you got pretty much, you can see that main swath of precip through the northern central United States. We've got a little bit that's making our way out, and that was showing up in the 7-day forecast up here, drying out a little bit over the weekend. And so not much to shake a stick at around here for us, but you can see off the coast up there, we've got some precipitation coming in, and I think it's supposed to hit like around the beginning of next week. I'm timing a trip up to West Yellowstone and Hepburn Lake, so hopefully I'm going to miss it somewhat. Okay, now 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. Continued above normal, precipitation kind of around the same, and you're going to see this signature continue for a while. And we'll talk about the little bit distance feature in just a moment here. Not much change for 7 to 14, or excuse me, 8 to 14. Little bit as you go up, nice little comparison. The below normal temperatures aren't so distinct down in the southeast US, but ours in the west expand just a little bit. And precipitation below normal, but not a lot, hopefully. And then they're in the Oregon, California, Nevada areas. They're looking much further below. Now, let's look at the seasonal outlooks. And our main question is what's going to happen. We've had a very rare 3 in a row La Niñas, and that pounded us all last spring, last winter. So the next question is where are we headed? And we're on our way to an El Nino. Is that right? Yeah, El Nino, and the signature is looking strong. That doesn't mean the impacts are going to be exceptionally intense, but the signature is showing the possibility of it staying strong throughout the season through into the spring is about in the 90 percentile confidence. And so this upper graph is what a typical El Nino temperature and the sea surface temperature anomaly is. Kind of a nice brush stroke across the equatorial Pacific there, a little bit further north, and kind of touches down into the Philippines and the Samoan Islands there. But if you look at that bottom one, suddenly you've gone from a nice little paintbrush brush stroke to pretty much a hairpin that's kind of covering all the way up into northern South America, down into Brazil and Chile. And then if you see that, it's wrapping itself up even driving up into Russia. And if you can see in the top one, there's not really any color at all up in the up in the United States, but you see the signature starting to make itself known there in the Southwest, and we start getting a little bit of green up there, meaning it's a little bit wetter, but it's not that intense. And then if we look into our drought outlook, they kind of combine that information in there. They have us, since we tend to be, well, southern Idaho, northern Utah tend to be really on the edge. They can be a good snow winter. They can be really dry. I believe it was 83 that we had some huge snowfall, but it was an El Nino. So don't count out your skiing season right now. So, but it still looks good for us. And this is just through December. So you never know what's going to happen, because El Nino impacts can start really hitting the beginning of the year. But it's creeping in the northern part of the state, down in our area, and through that entire section there. Obviously, California is going to stay wet for a while. And they got hammered just the other day as well. So that's kind of where they're ending us up. And now let's look at the seasonal outlook. This is December to February, and the signature of the precipitation and the temperature it should follow along with the El Nino signature there. It's always, it's usually wetter than normal down in the south as you really get over into the southeast. Wetter than normal. And this surprise has got equal chances to be the temperature outlook down in the south. Usually it tends to be somewhat below normal, but they have it's a good amount of precip. And you can see our temperatures are getting warmer. Then we're heading out to January, February, March. That's where the El Nino starts kind of hitting in a little bit harder in the southwest. And dry precip is inching down. So let's cross our fingers that it's not too bad. And then on down to that. Wow, that was a quick one. I went through it short and quick for y'all. Does anybody have any questions? Or do I have a quiet audience out there? I think is somebody muted? Let me go.
Yeah, well, thank you, Sherry. Great presentation. Okay. Are there any questions for Sherry? It was a thorough presentation, Sherry. Thank you.
Okay, nothing but crickets. Okay, we're going to stop sharing there. Thanks, guys.
Great. Well, thank you. And next on the agenda is a snowpack and stream flow forecasts with the NRCS. So that's Aaron.
All right. Let me know when you can see that, Cooper.
Yeah, excellent. Looks great.
Fantastic. Hi, everyone. Erin Workton with NRCS, and there isn't much snow to talk about, but we'll talk about the forecasts and how those turned out for the last season and a few other things. Sherry covered this really well. We are out of drought. You can see that northern Idaho is really experiencing different conditions than central and southeast Idaho. So we'll keep that in mind throughout the season. Water year precipitation, as Sherry mentioned, has been above normal for the beginning of the year. So right now in the headwaters, we're at 160%. Henry's Fork, Teton, 147% of normal. Willow, Blackfoot, Port Enough Basin, 229% of normal. And it sounds like just from the recent rains last night, that number will continue to go up. Looking at water year precipitation, that dash green line is the period of record median. The dark green line is last year. So you can see that we did end up, even at the end of the season, well above normal. And then right now that black line is just showing the little bit beginning of the season. So we're at 161% of normal in the headwaters. In terms of snowpack, really nothing. I saw that like Grand Targhee Station's gotten a little bit of snow. but for the most part, the snowpack has not begun accumulating, just the temperatures are not cold enough yet. Taken from a webcam at Doran's, if you know where that is, it looks towards the Grand Teton. We see a little smattering of snow. I can't tell if those are just remnants of earlier storms that have, or I would say seasonally persistent snowpack that tends on those north facing slopes, but there's a tiny bit of snow, but for the most part, it's still dry. Still fall. Soil moisture is looking good. It kind of depends which product you're looking at. On the left, this is the upper 8 inches of soil, 20 centimeters. It's showing near normal conditions. That's what that gray indicates. And then the green is indicating where there's a little bit of wetter than normal conditions. And that's using in situ measurements, that left one. So that's a lot of the SNOTEL soil moisture probes that data is coming from. And then on the right, the top 3 meters of the soil are showing wetter conditions. That's a mixture of satellite data and then also like a land surface model that NOAA runs. And that's showing a little bit wetter conditions. When we look at the gray satellite imagery, it's showing drier, especially in the groundwater. So I think we still do have lingering effects from multi-year drought, but we have been trending towards wetter conditions, and hopefully we'll see the positive benefits of that. I wanted to share this cool tool with you guys in case this would be helpful for your own efforts when talking about water around the state. It's looking at the economic value of water from snow. This is the annual value, and I've got the URL. It's an interactive map off the University of Washington, and it's based on 2 different papers. One, amount of runoff that's generated in each basin and watershed, and then also you can play with what the present day cost of water is, looking at changes to rain and snow, so like getting an idea of how to like value snowpack in your area, and then playing with what that cost is per acre feet. That will also Headwaters is showing that like the percent of runoff from snow is 82.5% based on this 2017 paper, generating 7 million acre feet in total. So a little bit under 5.3 from snow and about 1.2 from rain. And then just the upper Snake Basin as a total is the amount of runoff generated from snow is around 64%, generating almost 8 million acre feet. Looking at our stream flow from our forecast from last year, on the left, those are our April 1 forecasts. And then on the right is looking at the observed stream flow. And so this is comparing to the 30-year normal. So on April 1, we forecasted a high C 110% of normal. And this is for the April through September period. And we ended up getting 108% of normal, so a little bit less than was forecasted on that April 1st date. We saw basically, I would say, except for that one point in the Henry's Fork Teton, we saw less water come off compared to what was forecast in April 1. Probably some of the biggest differences was coming off the Salt River. We forecasted originally 139%. We saw 121% normal. And then coming into how much water was going to come in from that basin, we had thought there'd be 109%. And we saw 98% of normal come into Flag Ranch, which is the input into Jackson Lake and is representative of the highest kind of headwaters for the Snake Basin. I wanted to put this together of showing you what the difference between the observed and forecasted stream flow volumes. So the figure on the left is showing you the volume differences between what we forecasted on April 1st and what was observed at each one of our forecast points. So at High C, we were short 62,000 acre feet, so 2% error. A lot of that's coming in from the headwater, the difference coming into Jackson Lake. And then this is the next one. Or sorry, I should say on the right, the tables, I have a hard time when I looking at the map and keeping all the numbers in my head. So I just wanted to put those easily accessible for you. But on the April 1 forecast, we had forecasted 3,430 acre feet, and we saw observed through the April-July time period 3,368 acre feet. Looking at the blue table, which is the April through September period, we saw close to 4,000 acre feet. This is showing our forecast period for the May. So it's still forecasting the April through July period. But at that point, you know what the observed runoff in April is. So our forecast changed a little bit. We started hedging towards less water coming in, and then we underestimated forecast coming in, but still we were predicting more water coming into Jackson Lake than what actually happened. So that seemed to be a part of the basin that we over forecasted the kind of unregulated area between Jackson and then down to Alpine. We thought there'd be less water coming in. That area is a little bit harder to predict. There's not a lot of stream gauges to work with. But we ended up thinking that there'd be less water that come in. So I guess that can be good, having more water come down, but our areas grew a little bit as the season progressed. Reservoir storage, I'm sure the Bureau will cover this in great detail, but right now we are sitting above normal for the Upper Snake system. So reservoir storage is looking really good coming into this water year. As Sherry talked about, El Nino is here. We're starting to see those effects. Typically they're warmer and potentially drier in the Northwest. We have a new hydrologist on staff that began to analyze what El Nino SWE has been like for the past 50 years, or well, actually just compared to the 1991 to 20 median, using 6 different El Nino events. And this is for the Upper Snake Huck as a whole, so including like the Wood and Lost Valleys and the Huck 1704. And we'll present more of this information in the November meeting, probably at the IDWR meeting if there's time in the agenda. But if not, we'll also present at this meeting in the Upper Snake as well. What we've seen on a statewide pattern, and then both in the Upper Snake, is that in November, we have typically a wetter fall above normal precipitation. So just to orient you, we've got the months on the x-axis, and then the y-axis is just the ratio between SWE compared to the median. So if it's above 1 is that it's 100% normal. Anything above 1 is above normal, and anything below 1 is below normal. And so a consistent trend that we've seen so far in the data, and then at least in the Upper Snake, we tend to see, hopefully you guys can still hear me. We tend to see a decrease in SWE where we're around the rest of the months, with peak SWE typically ending near normal, but still a little bit below for these El Nino events in the Upper Snake. And here's a table looking at what those ratios are. The Upper Snake is that second row, where typically we'll get about 104% of normal precipitation, average across these different El Nino events, and then see a decrease where we're, closer to the 0.9, 90% of normal. It tends to be the drier basin within the state. We tend to get a little bit more moisture in the Middle Snake, and then also in the Kootenai Pond Array for these past El Nino events. And that's all I have for today. I can take any questions. Thank you.
Hey, okay, thank you, Aaron. Are there any questions for Aaron before we move on?
Cooper Allen Gelch, I had a comment.
Yeah, Alan. Yeah, go ahead.
So if I understand Aaron's data correctly, on the April 1 forecast and actual, it came in 2% under. Is that correct, Aaron? On the high C?
Yeah, so we were short 62 calf.
Okay, thank you. Just one
Um,
comment to NRCS.
So it's a 2% error.
Just a follow-up comment, I think I commend NRCS. I mean, to me, that's basically spot on. So
Thank
just
you.
to come in at 2% is commendable. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Alan. I really appreciate that. Yeah, we'll pass that on to our forecast hydrologist. We're happy. Obviously, we want to get it as good as we can, but that is probably as close as reasonable. We'll see.
Indeed, probably within measurement error. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Okay, well, thank you, Aaron. And next on the agenda is a water supply and operations update with the Bureau of Reclamation.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Cooper. Let me go ahead and share my screen here.
Hear ya. Yep, and we're seeing you too.
Okay. Let's see, is this showing up okay there?
Yeah, looks great. Yep.
Okay, sounds good. So I'll be going over current conditions and then the year in review, going over how last year trended, water year 23, the upcoming winter outlook, and the potential for FRM or flood risk management. Looking at basin conditions, currently altogether the reservoir system, the federal reservoirs are at 121% of median. And that's also 118% of average and 1.25 MAF more than last year at this time. So quite a bit different. We had quite a bit of runoff out of the upper Snake headwaters, Jackson Lake and Palisades. We didn't see flood control operations or flood risk management operations out of Jackson Lake, but we did out of Palisades. I'll go over that a little bit later in the presentation, but all in all, the reservoirs are really full for this time of year, or quite a bit more full. And I'll go over what that looks like for each one. So in the system, Palisades is discharging about 2,800 CFS just for irrigation downstream. And then Minidoka discharging about 3,800 CFS. And that'll winnow down over the next few weeks as irrigation wraps up, and go over winter flow plans here in a sec. Looking at Jackson Lake, comparatively to last year, currently have about 413,000 acre feet more in Jackson Lake than we did last year. Over here in this graphic, the red line is last year, and this kind of blue turquoise line is this year. So on the median, we're up around about 600,000 acre feet. So we're at 92% of median. You can see how last year we had a big inflow and we were within probably 20,000 acre feet of the historical minimum for Jackson Lake in the May timeframe. And then in the June timeframe, after peak runoff came through, we ended up at about 100,000 acre feet in fall. So it's a really good year for Jackson Lake in 2023. Looking at Palisades, currently we're sitting at 115% of median, and that's 563 calf more than last year. You see last year, 2023, we were within about 50 to 75,000 acre feet of the historical minimum all winter. And then we essentially filled in the June timeframe, right along the flood risk management curve. And I'll show that here in a couple slides, but we're riding the flood risk curve in the springtime. And then we've just been managing outflow all summer, and we're sitting really good for storage for this time of year. And this next spring looks promising to get fairly full at Palisades. Looking at the flood control curve or the flood risk management curve, this blue line in here is showing storage, and then the dashed red dotted line is the flood curve. So essentially for every day, there's a computed flood risk based on the forecast during the late winter, spring, early summer timeframe. And early forecasts were showing a drawdown to about 500,000 acre feet. And that's about what we got to naturally. And so once we intercepted that, we were riding the flood curve. We didn't have to draft Palisades per se, but we rode the flood curve on the way up to fill in June. So inflows or unregulated flow above Palisades peak came in at about 32,500 CFS, and then peak outflow physically from the dam was about almost 14,000 CFS. Looking at Island Park, currently Island Park sitting at 133% of median, 28 calf more than last year. So looking really good there at Island Park. Last year was a good year. There was a draft in April, late April or early May last year, with some extra water being sent out, not necessarily flood control, but just reservoir management there. And then we'll probably see a similar trend during the winter time here. I'll show what the plan is for the winter for outflows, but looking good for Island Park to fill this water year. Ryrie, we're trending down currently in storage there to get to 40,500, the beginning winter pool for Ryrie Reservoir. In the March, April timeframe, we released some extra water from Ryrie to manage the high inflow. But currently sitting at 95% of median and 3.9 calf more than last year, which doesn't make a big difference because we're going to be able to get to the 40,500. So we're going to start the year like we did last year. Let's see, this slide shows what the flood curve for Ryrie looked like last year. So as everyone's aware, there's an 8,000 acre feet kind of buffer there, or envelope that we can encroach in on the flood space. So we encroach in that up to about 8,000 acre feet. And then from there, the flood curve rises pretty steeply from March 1st up to about the middle of March. There was a flood space requirement this year. We weren't really on the curve per se, but kept a little bit of space and then filled there in the June timeframe for Ryrie. Looking at American Falls and Lake Walcott, I added these together just because holistically that ends up being managed together. There's a little bit of back and forth with storage there between the reservoirs, but largely when we're looking at contents and the projections for what next spring could look like, and if there could be any spill, I'm lumping them together here. So currently we're sitting at 128% of median here, just shy of 400,000 acre feet stored in those two reservoirs. And that's 239 calf more than last year. So if you just look at this and kind of gauge where last year ended up, we came within about 100,000 acre feet of filling American Falls Reservoir. So if you add that in, and we had the similar snowpack, similar runoff year to last year, there would be about 140 calf of spill out of the system. So at this point, we're waiting to see how the year trends and where we look like we're going to get to next spring. And then we'll see what flood risk management needs are in the springtime. Looking all together at the system, currently the system is 121% of median, 1.25 MAF more than last year. So we're sitting really good. Again, if we have a similar runoff year, snowpack year next year, we would fill the system at least kind of high level. There's a lot of dynamics internally in the system where that may not happen perfectly, but we are sitting really good with system storage comparatively to last year. These next few slides, I'd go over what the gains in the Snake River system looked like during the year and then the fall time frame. So this slide is showing Snake River gains to Moran. So showing gains here in the wintertime. We had an early peak earlier than normal, about 2 weeks earlier than the median this year. Peaked out at about 8,700 CFS, came down and kind of been hovering around median during the summer fall time frame. And then over here on the right shows the July through September, August through September, and then just September time frame for kind of historical years for 91 through 2020, and then showing where 2022 and 2023. So 2023 had higher late summer, fall flows, gains into Jackson Lake there. Going on to Snake River gains, Moran to Irwin. Again, we had a late beginning to really runoff season with the colder than normal spring, and then had an early peak about a couple weeks earlier than normal. About 24,000 CFS for gains between Moran to Irwin. So this is between essentially Jackson Lake to Palisades, is that stretch of the river there. And then seeing a similar pattern here for Snake River gains, Moran to Irwin in the fall time frame, July through September, August through September, and then just September, about 1,000 CFS higher comparatively to last year this year. And then this slide brings in just the winter gains, and this is from November 1st through April. For these gains for the first bar here. So gains to Moran, November through April, there was approximately 175,000 acre feet that was seen there above Jackson Lake, and then about 150,000 acre feet for 2022. And so the winter gains, we were trending higher than last year, or in water year 2023, we were trending higher than we were in 2022 for November through April, December through February, and just the January timeframe. And then Snake River gains, Moran to Irwin, they were practically right on top of each other, 23 and 22 for the winter timeframe there. Still on the low end, but pretty much right on top of each other. And then the gains into Ryrie, in the winter time frame, we actually had higher base flows or gains into Ryrie Reservoir in 2022 for the April through November than we did in 2023. But then December through February and just January were about the same, 22 and 23. And then looking at available gains into American Falls and Lake Walcott, this parameter is showing, or for the period November through April, where we ended up. So this past year, based on this calculation, coming in at about 650,000 acre feet over the winter time frame, whereas in 2022 coming in about 510,000 acre feet. And that's using the Hydromet and American Falls gains, taking off Island Park, Grassy, and Ryrie outflows, and any of the lower valley diversions, and then accounting for the 425 that we're planning for the winter, for about 1023 through 315 upcoming for 425. These are the volumes that computed into those two reservoirs. Currently, system diversions are trending about just slightly below median there. We'll get down to essentially being done with diversions for irrigation in early November. And at that point, Palisades will get to its winter flow probably early November. Outflow from Minidoka will be getting down to its winter flow here in the next couple of weeks as irrigation in the lower valley wraps up. But all in all, in water year 2023, the peak was just above normal or median diversions, about on that 29,000 CFS range there for system diversions in early July. This slide shows the current fill potential for the lower valley reservoir. So this includes American Falls and Lake Walcott combined. So those two reservoirs together have a combined storage of 1.768 MAF. The largest majority of that is American Falls. And some of the assumptions in here are that by May 1st, that we'll have the similar outflow from Palisades this winter up until May 1st. And as you recall from the flood risk management slide, we didn't intersect the curve until about May 1st. And so this is essentially assuming no real flood control out of Palisades. This assumes Allen Park is full on May 1st. That may or may not be, but that's assuming that. No outflow from Rye or Grassy, and then 425 from Minidoka from the end of this irrigation season up until about March 15th. So you can see on the wet years that we would be full. And most of this is showing or indicating really good base flows for gains into American Falls, accompanied with lower diversions, say in a wet spring when diversions aren't taking as much. That's the kind of bellwether or the signs for when this would occur. And then anything on top of this, if there's flood control next spring, would add to that. So as you recall from the Palisade slide, we're about, let me go back and grab that number. So currently we're at 563,000 acre feet more currently in Palisades than we had last year at this time. And so if the same precipitation comes through this year that we had in 2023, then there would be additionally about 563,000 acre feet of additional water that we would be sending downstream. So there's no indication that we have to do flood control or that we will be doing flood control, but there is a strong potential for excess to spill out of the system, especially if there is really good precipitation this winter. So upcoming winter flow plans for Jackson Lake. Currently we're at 280 CFS and we're planning to keep that through the winter. Currently the Jackson Lake is 96,200 acre feet below the maximum winter pool level there. Palisades, we're planning on 900 and we'll be getting to 900 when possible in early November. Currently, we're higher than 900 out of Palisades for diversions downstream. Island Park, plan is to get to 200 CFS on the 16th upcoming, and then increase to 400 to 450 CFS on or around December 1st. And that should help get really good winter flows for power and habitat or environment downstream, and then be able to begin filling once ice-off comes through next spring, and which from Rob Van Kirk's estimates would be around April 28th. So there's a plus and minus days or weeks on that, depending on how the spring goes. But that's the plan for Island Park. Ryrie will be getting to 0 CFS here once we get to within range of the 40,500 to begin the winter at that 40,500 acre feet at Ryrie. And then American Falls and Minidoka Dam. American Falls outflow this winter will be about 300, but then looking at them together, the release out of those two, really it's Minidoka Dam, would be 425 CFS target outflow from Minidoka Dam. And that'll happen in the next couple of weeks. I think the different irrigation districts are on the call that we'll probably get to here in a little while in the meeting. But all of these are subject to change over the winter, depending on developing outlook. At this point, we're not planning on being different than these, but we could, depending on what the outlook is. So moving into FRM potential, this slide is showing, and actually Aaron showed the graphic of this. It's the Huck 6 basin, basically the Snake River upstream of the high sea gauge. On May 1st of 2023, we had 25.2 inches precipitation showing on that kind of this index here, which is above average for this basin. Currently, we're right on average, but above last year. So we have a good start to this year. Whether or not we get up there, what to see. But what I ended up doing was pulling all the years that there were records for that the NRCS had, and I pulled the May 1st precipitation here in this column, and these are ranked highest to lowest. Oh, sorry, actually the high CQU, it's ranked by high CQU. And so on the upper end, you'll see 97, 2011, 2017, 96, 99. And on the lower end of high CQU, you'll see 92, 2001, 2007, 1994. So using that precipitation level, I looked at the same graph. The NRCS has this period of record, but then they also have a projection where they project the percentile or chance to get to that precipitation level. And so there's this chance of reaching based on NRCS projections, and then the high CQU for that year, and then the solid line total space required, and then the kind of the partitioned out space for Jackson, Lake, and Palisades Reservoir. I highlighted this in a black box here. There's a static 200,000 acre feet requirement for Jackson Lake. So even though the curve shows less, we keep 200,000 acre feet up until May 1st. So then there's a Palisades space. And this is where 2023 lined up in there based on high CQU 3.1 map at 25.2 inches. So looking at the rule curve, you'd see 500,000 acre feet of space required. And current projections I'm seeing would come within about 100,000 acre feet of filling Palisades by May 1st. So if we saw similar precipitation, we'd see about 400,000 to 500,000 acre feet of water released from Palisades between or before May 1st, if we see the same precipitation. But we might be on the drier end, so we'll just have to see how the year turns out. And then this graph uses the previous slide's table to graphically show the chance on the bottom axis, and then the space required for, and this is just Palisades on May 1st. Currently seeing about 60 to 65% chance of needing some space requirement at Palisades there. How much will depend on how much precipitation we get between now and then. So over the year, this water year, this graph will change, either get closer, move to the left, or move to the right, depending on how precipitation trends this year. So I believe that's all I've had. Take any questions if there are any.
Yeah, Cooper, this is John Simpson. Hey, Brian, good morning. Hey, can you go back to your winter base flows into American Falls graph? I know I've talked to you about that one right there on the bottom right. I think that's, yeah. Can you identified 23 and 22 and the differences on the bottom right there. And what's the black line? Yeah, there you go.
This is
the average, the median?
Yeah, that would be the median. And then this would be 25% percentile line, and then the 10% line, and then the minimum down here.
Okay. When you say the minimum observed, or observed over the period of record, or is that just
it'd be from November through April. And this is a calculated parameter. What I've seen is that this calculation is geared towards, from what I'm seeing, projecting what conditions could look like in American Falls and Lake Walcott next spring, not necessarily the accounting. So this shows at a high level what that picture looks like. So I wouldn't take this to the bank on accounting, but this just shows kind of where that it shows where it's trending, that calculation. Okay,
so that calculation is trending to be not as bad as 22 was. So the fall of 23, winter of 23-24 is expected to be a little bit better, but not at the median.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, sounds right.
Okay. And that's critical because the more water we get in that time frame, of base flow coming into American Falls, the sooner American Falls fails, and the sooner that the water that's retained in Ryrie can be accounted towards the Ryrie fill as well. Is that correct?
Yep. Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Cooper.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions for Brian? Well, thank you, Brian. And hearing no other questions, we'll move on in the agenda to Idaho Power Company operations update.
Yeah, thanks, Cooper. Let me see if I can share my screen here.
We can hear you.
All right, can you see that screen there?
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's great to be back to the meetings and just kind of run through what I typically bring. But this is the 2024 Upper Snake Ops. Basically what Idaho Power is anticipating and forecasting, to occur. Just wanted to highlight, it is really early. Really, the only signal that you get in a forecast right now is going to be soil moisture, antecedent conditions. So, ultimately right now there's a lot of uncertainty, but I think this is encouraging, seeing Idaho Power forecast and the RFC forecast really pretty tight together, kind of both seeing the same kind of antecedent conditions in there. So 92% of normal. I did just want to point that out. I mean, it kind of seems counterintuitive, right, to see percent of normal lower than 100% right now with above normal soil moisture. But really it's just all about what you're benchmarking to. And the benchmarking number here, I just pulled right from the RFC, and they're currently using average. So if you were to use median, you'd see those numbers much closer to slightly above, 100%. So I just kind of wanted to point that out there. You can see too, just the differences in calibrations. The RFC's mission is really, prevent flooding. And kind of have an early warning system to that. And so you can see on the top end, the RFC is a little bit higher than us. On the bottom end, we're a little bit lower than them. And I think that really just comes down to what you calibrate your models to and what your most sensitive and your mission is related to that. You can see the soil moisture. I did just pull this from the NRCS. So you can see the black line here, slightly above normal soil moisture in the upper snake there. I think that's really been highlighted by the precipitation that we've been seeing. I kind of pulled it just from the RFC, but really since May, we've really seen, really exceptional precipitation from a spring standpoint or from a summer into fall standpoint. So, that's really encouraging to see that and see that wet weather hitting us. The remnants of Hurricane Hillary, I think everyone remembers that. But it really was an exceptional year from a precipitation standpoint. Or I guess second half of the water year. Forecast assumptions, Brian already went over this, as to what the Bureau is anticipating. We're kind of using what would be middle of the road assumptions. So if we get normal precipitation, we use the forecast you're seeing on the screen. We're kind of showing, minimum releases everywhere, which you already threw up on the screen. And then a transition to flood risk management. Kind of under a normal scenario, we're seeing more towards March, but really it's kind of anyone's guess this early at this point. But a strong, signal towards some sort of flood risk management operations this year based on carryover storage. And I just put this up here. I did think it was interesting. We're pretty close to similar reservoir carryover as water year 2020. So we've been using some of the water year 2020 operations to help kind of inform our modeling. Kind of leaving the upper Snake and going down in Snake River flow conditions. This is stream flows for Snake River near Murphy. I think actually, Brian, your wintertime base flows is kind of interesting because we're seeing a similar signal, a slight improvement from 2022 to 2023 in the base flows also at Snake River at Murphy. And so on the left-hand side, you can see the Swan Falls 3-day average AADF in black. And you can see in 2022, we were essentially scraping by, kind of on those minimums, that red line for really the entire year, with the exception of that spring runoff period. But transition into 2023, once again, really close to minimums of record during the winter. And then we saw that, improvement from the snowpack and improvement from the precipitation. And really, you can see that separation between the black line and the red line now, and that slight improvement relative to 2022. Still below the long-term median, but encouraging sign to see some improvement for Murphy flows. I did just want to highlight, these are kind of some of the same figures we show each year, but I think this is an awesome, program that the company does. We are transitioning to our fall Chinook program, where we go out, we monitor fall Chinook reds. So you can see a red is this nest that, essentially are spawning habitat that the salmon use. You can see an image of that. And then, we're going out and we're currently flying drones right now and counting reds and kind of working with, our stakeholders on that program right now. And as part of that, you can kind of see here, really since 1991, we've kind of engaged in that voluntary program. This is the Snake River adult fall Chinook returns at Lower Granite. You can see we saw, pretty good improvement last year in 2022 after a couple years of down. And as of right now, we're still seeing another, potentially strong run for fall Chinook, relative to what we've seen over the course of the last, 5-10 years. So that's encouraging to see good numbers for fall Chinook salmon as well. And then finally, this is just showing the operations for the fall Chinook. So what we do is we lower the flow to a flat flow of 8,500 CFS and maintain that through the spawning period in order to kind of establish those reds. So right now you can see here, we just recently on Monday decreased flows. We'll be running 8,500 CFS. Part of the program and how it relates to the Upper Snake is that we have to forecast what would be going past Milner and ultimately the inflows into Brownlee in order to maintain those flat flows and not, fill the pool too much or fill the pool too little. So ultimately looking really good, and we'll continue to track how the forecasts look. And you can see here, being operationally full in order to meet wintertime load at the end of the fall program. That's all I had, Cooper.
Well, that was great, John. Thank you. Are there any questions for John before we move on in the agenda? Okay, well, hearing none, is there cloud seeding update is the next item on the agenda?
All right, I've got that set up for you, Cooper.
Excellent.
All right, can you guys see that screen?
Yep, absolutely, looks good.
All right, so an update for the collaborative cloud seeding program for Idaho, and starting this year, I'll go ahead and focus on the Upper Snake since that's where we're at, but all the details are across the center here. Going into the season, we have 25 remote ground generators that Idaho Power runs. Our partners at Let It Snow through the High Country and RC&D also have 25 generators up there. Those are the green dots that are shown on the screen. Ours are the kind of pinkish reddish crosses. And then we do have one aircraft that'll be operating there. The crews have been up in the Upper Snake all week with fill and fire and getting everything ready to go. And we'll be at 100% by the time we go into November 1st for the start of the program. Along with the ground generators and the aircraft, we do continue to run the high resolution WRF models to support operations, as well as the WRF weather mod module, which helps to give us guidance on when the most efficient and effective time to run operations is. We'll continue to use that as well as our instrumentation throughout the season to get the best cloud seeding effect that we can for the year. And that's all I've got, unless anybody's got any questions for me.
Well, that's excellent, Mel. Thank you. Are there questions for Mel? Okay, and hearing none, thanks again, Mel. We'll move on to a Water District 1 briefing, and I'm sitting here with Tony and Craig, so I'll let them take it. Here's Tony. Craig is over there too.
Okay, thanks, Cooper. I don't have any slides to show. I'll just give a kind of a brief update of where we're currently at and where we expect to be over the next few months. Currently, we're filling the 1905 priority for all river reaches, and that'll probably continue all the way until the third week October, when Twin Falls Canal is expected to cease diverting water for irrigation. At that time, it'll probably take at least a few more weeks to fill the remaining space in the Lake Walcott priority. But there's anticipation that at least one or some of the canals in that lower Minidoka to Milner reach will be using the storage water that was provided to the Surface Water Coalition by the groundwater users. They expect to divert that water for recharge. That's going to be approximately equal to the 450 CFS or so being released past Minidoka Dam. So that leaves a remaining reach gain that arises between Minidoka and Milner available to the Water Resource Board natural flow recharge right in that lowest reach. So we'll anticipate probably in October, late October and all the way through November, that the Surface Water Coalition storage provided by the groundwater users will be recharged in that lower reach, in addition to the 85 CFS of the Water Resource Board recharge that's going to occur. Which canals are going to divert that recharge water, I'm not exactly sure right now. I've seen some preliminary data, but we'll just have to wait and see as to how we want to plan that out. Once that recharge of storage rental ceases in the end of October, or I should say the end of November, then the approximate 450, 425 CFS being released past Minidoka becomes available as natural flow to the Water Resource Board recharge right. So really, I think the recharge will remain the same after November as it is before or between October and November. It just essentially we're changing the color of water as to whose water is actually being recharged. And that'll continue through the winter time. The recharge right won't come into priority above Minidoka Dam until we reach the spring, after we fill American Falls, Lake Walcott. It's possible if we have a really good winter, good snowpack, the Bureau might be releasing flood control storage. Even though the Water Resource Board may not be in priority above Minidoka at that time, according to our computerized accounting, there is a process where you can fill out a form and apply for recharge for that excess water spilling past Milner. So we'll just have to wait and see. That's a long time off, another 5 or 6 months. But for the immediate future, we're going to have some recharge occurring here in late October and all the way through November, and then past that, depending how the Water Resource Board wants to allocate their storage. So that's kind of a quick summary of what's going to happen over the next couple months. Be glad to answer any questions if there are any out there.
Thank you, Tony. And are there any questions for Tony? Okay, and hearing none, the next item on the agenda is a managed recharge operations update. I can fill you in on what we're planning for in the Upper Valley. Give me just a minute. So bear with me here. This is, okay, good. You can see this. This is just, you know, right now the Water Resource Board is diverting storage water into the Aberdeen-Springfield Canal Company's Hilton Spill. We're diverting about 200 CFS. We have been since the 6th of October. The next big date is Monday, October 16th, when we expect to begin continuing to use the spill in the Hilton spill, but also we're going to use Aberdeen Springfield Canal Company's canal system, and we're going to go to 500 CFS through that.
Hey, Cooper.
Yeah,
Are you trying to share your screen right now?
I am.
We can't see anything.
Oh, I appreciate that, Josh. Thank you. You know, I guess you can't, you're not gonna, let me try one more thing. I apologize. How about now?
Yep, we can see that.
Okay, thank you, and I apologize. Okay. The Aberdeen Springfield Canal System is going to begin on October 16th with 500 CFS. Also on this, and that will continue through October 31st-ish. The BIA's Reservation Main Canal will also begin diverting on the 16th at approximately 85 CFS. And that will continue through until either November 30th or the weather stops it. Progressive Irrigation District is going to be using their canal system beginning on the 16th, and that'll be approximately 100 CFS. And then on the 19th, we expect Snake River Valley Irrigation District to begin diverting 80 CFS through the 31st. That's the Upper Valley. I don't know if we have a Lower Valley presentation. If not, I can go through kind of what we're doing preliminarily. But basically what we're doing there is we're figuring out the details, but we're gonna begin, we're gonna recharge approximately 50,000 acre feet through variously American Falls Reservoir District number 2, Northside Canal Company, Minidoka Irrigation District, Twin Falls Canal Company, and Southwest Irrigation District. So that 50,000 acre feet is going to be recharged through those head gates. And I think with that, does anybody have any questions? And hearing none.
Hey, Cooper, I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. When do you anticipate the Lower Valley recharge to begin?
As early as next week. It looks like it's proposed next Monday.
Okay. We've heard shut-off dates from the canals. I think we've heard from everyone in the Lower Valley. So just wanted to check on that. So, okay, thanks.
It's kind of in flux, but this is what we're seeing as far as our planning. Any other questions? Well, hearing none, the next item on the agenda is new business. Does anyone have any new business they want to bring to the group? Well, and hearing none, then the next item is to adjourn. The next meeting is scheduled for November 9th at 10 a.m. So hopefully we can avoid some of these technical difficulties, me included. And thanks everybody, and look forward to seeing you in about a month.
Thank you, Cooper. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone.
Good week. We'll see you in a month. Or
Thanks.
good, see you then.